It's Leap Day.
I know.
February 29th, 2016. Gordy Little and Calvin Castine with two lovely ladies. I got in the car with Calvin at 8:30 this morning in Peru, New York. And once we got underway, I said, where are we going anyway? As we headed down the Northway and got off the Northway and headed through Crown Point. And then we kept driving and driving and driving and driving until we got to Ironville. And that's where we are, right?
Awesome. Yep.
Tell me who you ladies are.
I'm Jennifer St. Pierre.
Hi, Jennifer.
And I'm Tammy Woody Brown.
Tammy, I know you.
I know. I used to be Tammy Rock from the Battle of Plattsburgh Association.
How about that? If anyone is watching this program has not heard of Frontier Town, we're going to turn the lights on for you today and learn about it, because these ladies, if anybody cares about Frontier Town and its history, these are the two ladies. See these books? These beautiful leather-bound books? That's what attracted our attention in the first time. How did this whole thing begin with you two?
I looked up Frontier Town, and I went and visited, took pictures, and we did census work there. So we had to go through and count the buildings, which ones were still livable. And I posted pictures on the internet, and everyone said, you need to make a book out of these pictures. And so I looked up the Facebook page, and there was nothing there. So I researched, and there was an actual website by Steve Gross about Frontier Town. It had Tammy Whitty's name, so
of course it did.
At the time. And then I contacted Tammy. She helped me with the leads, and then she can explain more what she did after that.
So my piece of starting with Frontier Town, besides growing up going there and working there, but I was a student at Plattsburgh State from 2006 to 2009, a history major, and I decided to do my senior thesis on Frontier Town. I wanted to do it like a memory project, and so that's how I had reached out to Steve Gross and asking any visitors or any employees if they had any memories they'd like to share for my project. And so that's how Jenny and I kind of connected, with her looking to start her book. And it was kind of a perfect fit, because that's kind of what I wanted to do when I was doing my senior thesis, is have a collection of memories that could be kept forever, because we have so many of these amazing amusement parks in our region that have closed, and the only thing that's left is what's in people's minds or a few pictures. So when she came to me and asked me what she wanted to do, told me what she wanted to do, I was like, this is a perfect fit. So we kind of started collaborating.
Did you have any idea what you were getting into when you started?
No, I did not.
Any clue at all?
No, but as I met with Tammy, and she has the gift for gab, and she's
Yes.
That's why I love this lady.
Exactly. So we were definitely complete opposites, and she's just so boisterous that people would automatically trust her with their stories. And I was able to get people to donate their pictures, and then I met people like Joe Provancha with a huge collection. He was more than willing to help. And then other people like Art Lyle's daughter, she donated the use of her slides. And as more and more pictures came in, it would spread. So as people trusted me, they'd send their negatives or their pictures. I'd process them and send them back. And as you'll see, we have some, the actual original 16 millimeter film that we're processing now. And so people trusted us with their memorabilia, and we would photograph it and send it back to them or digitize it. And in the case with the film itself, the museum here at Penfield is helping with a grant to basically digitize all of the film and all of the photos, so that you can go into their website and look up your grandfather. And to some people, that is really important to them, to see when their grandfather was a kid riding bronco. You know, just amazing stories from people like Percy Fleming, Dick Corey. You know, those people are still around, and their stories are really important, especially to their family. And it's a little bit sad the way that it ended. But when they start talking about when they were 14, their faces light up, you know, and just a really good story. And everyone has, you know, amazing stories from Frontier Town.
Because it's a part of our childhood.
Exactly. I went when I was 7, and Tammy was working
Fantasy,
there.
imagination.
We figured out that I probably was lifting Jenny up and putting her on ponies.
No,
when
is
she
that
was little.
possible?
It is possible.
It's possible.
Because, if you were below a certain height, you had to ride the pony ride, and I would stretch up every year, try to be as tall enough to go on this bigger ride. And I ended up stuck on the little ponies with Tammy. But
And I think that it's not just our immediate families. I mean, it's our past family history. Like, as I started working on it and getting deeper into it with Jenny, I started realizing that more and more of my past family, my father's grandfather on the maternal side, Frank Palmer Sr., Palmer Pond's named after it. They're in North Hudson, right by. He was from Ross Forge Village. He had given land to Mr. Benson to be able to build the Ross Forge Village. That was the plan. They were going to expand and rebuild it. Unfortunately, the state came in under eminent domain and took all the property and put the Northway exits in, so that didn't happen. But and then just digging deeper, like my uncle, we found pictures of my uncle out cutting with my grandfather with the horses, the cutting ice in one of the houses, filling the ice house, and then my father's like, oh, those are the same horses your grandfather used to help Mr. Liberty drag all of the logs out of the woods for the log cabin. So as we got deeper and deeper into it, we realized our own personal families were deeply involved in it, but also the other families when we talk to them. And you hear the generations, like the Liberty family, right from the get-go when the doors, I mean, Jim helped build the cabins. Dottie worked for many, many, many years. She's in the log home. Her daughter worked there. Her granddaughter worked there. Her great-granddaughter worked there right up until it closed. So there's a huge connection to all the families, and it's not just North Hudson. It's Mariah.
Thousands and thousands and thousands of people.
Exactly.
Thanks to the internet.
Right.
And special social sites and internet sites. Without the internet, this project would still be wallowing where it was about 3 days after you started, I think.
Tammy helped with a survey, an online survey, and we put out that in the newspaper, we're taking in stories, and it just grew from there. And what you don't realize is that when Frontier Town closed, it hurt a lot of the community because the kids would start working at 16 or, and then go on to college. That was money to go to college, but it also helped your retirees. They came back and worked there. It was income for every generation. And when it closed down, it hurt the local community, both Schroon Lake, North Hudson, Crown Point, Port Henry, Mineville, Newcomb, anywhere in this area. And it did struggle because of some of the regulation, APA regulation, and you'll see in their writing, we have some documents that showed that they were very much against the APA, but it was understandable that they worked with the APA when they could.
Why are we here across the street from the Penfield Museum in Ironville? How many miles from Crown Point? It seemed like 65, but I'm sure it wasn't more than 5 or 6, is it?
The Penfield Museum asked for one of the buildings at Frontier Town, and they've been given the gristmill, and it's going to be moved here. Excuse me, the forge is going to be moved here, and I can show you pictures. The original forge from Crown Point
Let me hold that up for Calvin.
Okay. Was moved to Frontier Town.
Yeah.
And that was Jim Pritchett's forge. So they are donating the forge to Penfield, and it's going to be put back into running order.
They're working with the county supervisors to make that happen so that it's not one of the buildings that ends up, the board, county supervisors board approved it so that it's not lost forever, that it comes back and it continues to be used. So, and they're encouraging other organizations that might find some of the buildings or something to do that too. They can reach out and try to, they have to have a good plan. They have to have financing and funding and stuff, but it's better than many of the buildings are going to have to be torn down because they're in horrible, horrible shape. But the ones that can be salvaged, the county wants to see them get salvaged just as much as the next person. So
the memories are fantastic.
They are.
As you found out very quickly when you went online and started collecting little bits of history of people who, like you, grew up with Frontier Town. And they came out of the woodwork.
They did. Some of the stories won't make it to print, and you won't hear some of them.
Of course not.
But amazing stories. And what you didn't see is that how close everybody worked together. They would bring their children to work at the beginning of the day and just let them go. And at the end of the day, they take their kids home. And a lot of people would just drive up, drop off their kids, and leave because they knew that the employees would watch out for each other's children, and anybody that was there it was safe. And you had different things throughout the day that would keep the children busy. But the different crafts and different industry that was around there actually inspired those children later on to go into those fields. Like you had your metalworking, your woodworking, wood carving, leather working, and that's part of one of the stories about the book itself, is that the man who actually did the leatherwork, Clarence Canary,
look at this.
inspired
It looks
George
like
Landon.
like a fine purse or a wallet or a belt.
It was originally a briefcase for one of the owners, and Mark Landon was instructed by Clarence Canary on how to do leatherwork, and he taught his son Mark Landon, and who lives in Texas, and he volunteered to do the covers for the books.
So the pattern's actually Clarence's pattern
Yes.
that we've resurrected.
And that's just one story.
Is
Many
there
of them.
another book anywhere that's as beautiful as this on the face of the earth?
It smells amazing.
Well, we're a
the
little
leather.
partial. We think no, but we're really hoping that it stretches in the market too, because we know that there's so many people, south of us, New York City, New Jersey, Connecticut, that came every year. I mean, the first year alone there was close to, 50,000 the first year came to Frontiertown in 1952. So.
And they had over 1 million visitors by the end, but the problem was they didn't count children in the beginning, so they don't have an exact count of visitors. And another interesting fact about Frontiertown is that it opened in 1952, but Disney sent in a film crew to film Frontiertown and replicated as much as they possibly could and opened Frontierland in California. And it's written in the first book, which you'll see, the blue book, the story about, they actually invited them in to film at Frontiertown thinking that they were just making a movie. And in fact, they were not, I don't want to use the term knocking off, but they were inspired Frontierland.
That's about the kindest word I've heard in connection with that
The best
story.
politically correct word.
Right. And I've contacted them out in California, and they said that the buildings are, they're in the same shape as Frontiertown in North Hudson, that they're no longer allowed to have visitors come in and walk through those buildings. They're roped off now. But it's just amazing that they admit it and they talk about it, and it's, really nice.
Yeah.
So there are many thousands of people who have a direct connection
Yes.
or an indirect connection with Frontiertown. And as I said before, you are bringing them out of the woodwork thanks to the internet.
Yes.
And it's amazing to look every day when somebody says, "Oh, Frontiertown, let me tell you my story."
And it was funny because in the beginning, people were Jenny mentioned that I did the survey. People were very leery. I mean, they're very protective of their memories, and they're very protective of their photos and what happened, they're just, they own it so much, and they loved Frontiertown so much. They were so protective that I actually, when I set up the survey, the questions, I had to set them up in a way that when they answered them, I could put them all together. And I told Jenny from day one, I said, I don't want this just to be about my writing. Like the first, 40 pages is my writing the history of Frontiertown using Mr. Benson's book. Edna actually gave us permission to use that as a building block, but also adding how the region encompassed and loved Frontiertown and why, because they could do those old skills they never could do before. But trying to worm the stories out of people were very tough in the beginning, so I had to actually build the survey with very direct questions like, were you a employee or were you a visitor? And then, what year did you visit? And so then number 3 question was, what was your favorite act? And so I would make very direct questions so that when I got done, they would send me the survey, and then I copied and pasted them and made them into one. It was their words. I just copied and pasted it, but I did it in a way so that I could write their story for them using their words.
I want to know what mark you got.
I don't know what I get.
Did you get an A?
Do you remember for your
Come on.
thesis?
Oh, for my thesis, yes.
Yeah, I'm talking about that.
Well, I think we were plead on that. I was a straight A student all through school at Plattsburgh State in my history classes, A or B. Unfortunately, I struggled with the professor that was assigned to my project. He couldn't.
All of us who've been to school on that level have had professors that we struggled with.
He could not wrap his mind around what I was trying to do, and I will be honest, he's one of the first people that's going to get a copy of my book to
I love
show
it.
him.
Don't you love it?
Yes.
The rest of my professors completely understood and were very, very, and they're still very encouraging. We
Yes.
get actual emails, and I had one of them see it and love it and thinks it's great. I don't think he could wrap his mind around what I was trying to do. So,
But we've been very lucky, like the Adirondack Museum
Yeah.
is interested in showcasing the book itself, the leather cover book, and they've inspired a little bit of a change to the cover itself. They want to actually add the name Frontier Town. So we put it up as a vote on the internet. We have almost 2,000 followers on our Facebook page for the book alone. And that one has, it's bringing it out to the Adirondack Museum. We've also sent copies to the Smithsonian. And you don't think about the individual things that happen there, but one of them was the Native American powwow that happened. A lot of people know Swift Eagle, and he would demonstrate the dances that they did. And he would do the real dances. It wasn't like Disneyland.
He was a teacher.
It was real. And so like 2 weeks ago, I went to see Matoka, which is Swift Eagle's daughter, and she was storytelling in New York City. So, and then that's happening a lot, is that I'm finding out that people didn't just drop off after Frontier Town closed. Those things that were special about those people are still ongoing. You have your albino and your white horses, your Texas White Horse Ranch. They are still doing their performance, their Wild West type of performance. So you can look on the internet and you'll see links to the families that were there that were really important. One of these special parts about Frontier Town were the cowboys. We had Roger McLaughlin give us a roll call for the last cowboys that were the clowns at Frontier Town. So like this year they met in Kissimmee, Florida, and had like a reunion of the rodeo clowns, and we posted a picture of that. But when I showed him some of the film that we had digitized, it put him into tears. And
How can it not? For
Right.
those people who worked in villages like
right.
that,
He
as I
actually
did,
came to
this
our-
is powerful
Yeah.
stuff.
we had the Frontier Town reunion last year at Goki's
Goki's.
in North Hudson.
Oh, did you
big
really?
supporter. He's
Yeah,
a huge
Sharon
supporter.
Kelly was supposed to start. Unfortunately, she wasn't feeling well, and she asked Jenny and I to step in and kind of keep it going because people were excited about coming. And Mr. McLaughlin showed up, and he was all in his
No,
his
come
outfit.
on,
He's
come
one of
on.
the first cowboys at
Oh, is
Frontier
it?
Town. He's what, in his 80s? He's amazing. He's just a wonderful man. So
It was freezing cold, and you would think nobody would show up. They did.
we had them all under tents, hanging out, visiting,
Yeah.
looking at all of the pictures that we brought and all the
Stories.
memorabilia and story, telling us stories. That's where there's about 120 oral histories in there between the oral and we say oral histories. The survey monkey is their words. So some of them were from the survey that we did, and a lot of them were just her and I sitting, and
Right.
people walk up to us and, okay, let me get a piece of paper, and you start writing down the stories. And
The people like the Monacos showed up from the reunion, and ever since then I've had stories about the paintings, and you'll see some of these boards here.
So Ardo,
Ardo
yeah.
Monaco's
Of course.
Land of Make Believe.
Ardo Monaco
Can
did
you
the
see
sign
that
work.
behind me, Calvin? Okay, go ahead.
You'll see. And he
Here's
didn't
one.
play as
Here's one right
major.
here.
He didn't play as major of a role in the buildings part, but he did help with the signery. And his brother worked at Frontier Town. So those kind of stories, and
And he was that good an artist.
Yes.
2 days before he died, when he in his early 90s.
right.
What a pleasure it was to know him.
And I met with Dawn Brezzi, and she had a huge collection of staff photos. So those kind of things are really important. They talked about the different things that happen at Frontier Town, and you don't know, the little things about how they had like the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the Jamborees, the Americade, the special events that happened at Frontier Town. The road rally for the APA, ASA. I was there. I was 16 years old.
so in the 80s, we had
Right.
the headliner concerts. We had Johnny Cash. That
Oh,
was
sure, that was a big
That was
deal.
amazing. My cousin Punky, who was on the, she's an EMT, or she's not EMT. She was on the EMS for Scroon Lake, and she still talks about it. That June didn't want them to put bug spray on her, and it was during bug season, and she was completely, I don't want any bug spray, and she walked up and
Talking
John.
about June Carter.
Yeah, June Carter Cash, and Johnny reached over and grabbed the bug spray out of my cousin's hand and started spraying the back of her as she was going up on the stage.
I love it.
Some of the stories you hear, we would laugh.
That's a
Like-
story you won't see in the New York Times.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah, we actually Jenny, when she set up the book, dedicated a page to that. I had a lady that was in a nursing home in Elizabethtown send me, when I was in college, an actual unused Johnny Cash concert ticket for that concert.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I was
kidding.
there, I was working the concert, and she sends this to me. She goes, "I don't know if this is something you'd be interested in." Oh, yeah. And so
Yeah, I think I like that.
yeah, so when she started finding pictures, I'm like, we have to do a page, let's just do a page about that. So
And
it
the
was
memorabilia, what you paid $2.99 for a book back in 1958, I believe,
Yeah, when
is now
Going on.
Amazon for $250. So it's amazing. Some of the other things, like the children's master slide that you could pull down and you would see the disc.
For the Viewmasters?
Viewmaster, yes, those
Well, they
are going for like, whew.
Before that, they had a different style
Yes.
plastic ones, but those are now worth $85, and it's just amazing what people have.
But
And
this
they
is for 'em.
send me their memorabilia, your different hats, and so you'll see like on the inside, it's a Frontier Town hat, and you had your pop guns, and I'm sure you probably had your.
Oh, yes.
We all had our pop buttons.
And
Look
so
at
the one major thing that everybody talks about are the pop guns,
The caps.
The
cap
caps.
guns, and the
If-
that would feed out.
And the pony park was right next to the Western thing, and I just remember working there for 4 years. That's
Yeah.
all you would. As soon as one of the Western shows would happen with the bad guys and everything, right on the main
Horses.
strip, and the pond, which was also right there. That's all you would hear is those guns going off all day long. Kids walking around snapping them. It was funny. We'd have to ask them to put them away when they bring them into the pony
And the
park.
cowboys used
Yeah.
blanks, so they used
Yeah.
real guns with
Right.
blanks.
Yep.
Right, and I was inspired. I wanted to be a cowgirl after I went to Frontier
Oh,
Town.
you did?
Right, so I went to Casanova College, and after that I purchased miniature horses that actually came from bloodlines from the Frontier Town horses. So for about 10 years I gave humane horse rides, and the horses were so tame that you didn't have to actually, handle.
Of course.
Little kids could walk each other around on them. They were bomb-proof by the time by the time I had them, but it's just amazing what it inspired people to do.
And some of those ponies' parents were the ponies of my grandfather on my mother's side. Paul Jones, he had 14 ponies, and he sold them all to Frontier Town. And that's how I got my job the first day I went to apply. They were like, "Well, what kind of experience do you have?" I was 14, and they were like, I'm like, "Not really anything." And they were like, I said, "Well, I've worked with ponies my whole life." And next thing you know, "Well, we got a job for you." And that's how I ended up in the pony park, working with the same ponies that I had grown up with, sitting on and stuff. So it was pretty cool.
So this book has attracted a lot of attention, and as far as I'm concerned, it's only just begun.
We're hoping.
Did you have any clue when you conceived the idea that it would turn into be this big a project?
No, when you look at the book itself, there's 200 pages with 864 pages, and I knew I couldn't fit it into one book. So we're going to be working on volume 2 and have it out by Christmas this year, and I'm sure there's going to be a volume 3. There are thousands of photos that are amazing because they have people's grandparents and them as a child or a kid working there, and it's really important to them. They are donating their photos, and I'm trying to do them justice, do a really nice setup. And that's the nice part about being self-published, is that we could take our time and do it well.
Did you plan in the beginning to self-publish it?
Yes,
You did.
yes.
You had an idea, you checked out all the prices.
Yes.
You knew you were not going to go to the poorhouse based on...
At some point, we probably will go through a distributor, because I've been doing the distribution myself and with our website, and it's Jennifer
Takes a
St.
lot of time, doesn't it, Jen?
It does.
I have to
It's,
give her a lot of credit. She's
Oh,
done.
it's
hard
She's done
work.
probably
Yeah.
85% of it. I mean, I did the writing and I gathered the survey, but I unfortunately took a new position, a new job, so she's had to carry a lot of the weight on the end. So.
And the website itself is jenniferstpierrephotography.com, and you can order the books through there. Trying to think of.
But what's the site where people can comment on their experiences
On-
with Frontier Town?
On Facebook itself, we've opened it up so that people could post their own stories, their
Yes.
pictures, and that one is Frontier Town Then and Now, and it's just Facebook.com/Frontier Town Then and Now, and it'll bring it right up in your search.
Isn't the response
Amazing.
amazing?
It is. Dick Corey sent us singing. I interviewed him over the phone for the second book, and he just started singing to me, and it was
He took it was a song, "The Streets of Laredo," and he made it into
the Frontier Town Cowboys Lament, and
Oh,
within
Marty
two-
Robbins would be proud.
Right,
Oh,
within
yes, he
2
was.
days, there were 1,400 hits on my
Think about
website.
it.
Yeah, and then today I looked, there's 3,400, and that's within, what, 5 days?
5 days.
And that, Dick Corey is an amazing showman, and he sang back when he worked at Frontier Town. Longest standing employee, Dick Corey, Percy Fleming, just amazing people that built Frontier Town. Their ideas, their professionalism, and they made sure Frontier Town had no cars. They didn't want any chintzy things being sold there. They wanted it kept where you were walking back into history, and it was as real as it could be.
It was authentic.
It
All
was.
these places, I know where I worked, it was
Yeah.
absolutely
And
authentic.
volume 2 is coming together too, because of what I said earlier, that people were very skeptical about what we were doing, but now that it's grown and they've actually seen volume 1,
They're volunteering.
they're actually coming to Jenny and saying, what do you need? Because I got more stuff in the closet. Or I've got to go to the attic and I'll find it. Because now they understand what we're trying to do. And we actually have a gentleman from Lake George that's been talking to us down that way about wanting to do a similar type project for
That's right.
Gaslight Village.
Right.
To be able to record Gaslight Village. So basically this has become a prototype for some other projects that people
It's
are
so
starting to...
important that these memories be revitalized and preserved for generations who couldn't be personally touched by it, but indirectly,
Yep.
they're going to find out what they missed.
Well, a lot of
by
times
growing
we have,
up too late.
as I say, a lot of times we have people that never went, but they've heard their grandparents or their parents talk about it, and they want just seeing the pictures. Yeah, this is the tear breaker that I asked Jenny to do.
We have Goat Mullis's wife, Jane.
Hold it up so Calvin can see the picture. Hold this page right open.
He was one of the last marshals, and he was very well loved. The Cowboys went and he passed away from cancer, and they were the pallbearers at the funeral.
Many of them traveled from all over the country,
Right.
including up here to go down and be his pallbearers.
And she's coming back from, I believe it's Egypt,
She's-
this year, and she said, you need to come see me. I have more stuff that you absolutely need to put in the next volume. So people are just very giving, and the nice part is that it's giving back to those people when we post the pictures. And,
Before we go any further, tell me exactly how people can get a copy of this book.
it's on jenniferstpierrephotography.com. And you can also go through the Facebook page, and there's different retailers through the Adirondacks that are carrying the books. Some of them will carry a hardcover leather cover. Some will carry just the soft cover.
There are.
Right. So,
Okay.
like Goki's just ordered 50 soft covers because he can't keep them on the shelf.
He was,
Don't
going
you
through,
love it?
he was going through them like
Come on,
wildfire.
I love it.
Yeah. John Goki actually donated things like newspapers.
He has a whole palette of old
1950s.
newspapers he gives to us to
Yeah.
use, so we can do them. If we do a show or we do a signing or something, we try to make sure we always have a pile of them and we hand them out. We did a big book signing at the Scroon Lake North Hudson Historical Society, and we were taking orders like crazy just before Christmas, and we were giving everybody one of those. Plus, I think we had some posters and some bumper stickers that somebody had a big stack of them. So, it really gets people excited, and then they go spread the word.
How did Frontier Town stack up against some of the other large western villages across the country? Have you compared notes?
They would go to Frontier Town to learn more, to how to be more authentic, and they would share stories. In other words, your North Pole, Ardo Monaco, would go back to Frontier Town, talk with the owners, and see what works, what doesn't work, and they would literally share their information, which was positive, with each other. And what you would see at the different theme parks, some of that came directly from Frontier Town, like Disney, Frontierland in California.
Our viewers, for our little corner and the various programs Calvin has been associated with since 1983, are very familiar with Ardo Monaco because Calvin and I did 5 full-length interviews with Ardo, tracing his career from almost the moment he was born, because he was a very bright guy as a small child, until the day he died at age 90. Age 90, we interviewed him 6 days before his death, on his 90th birthday at the J Library.
Right.
And he had a great influence on my life because he helped to design a western village called Frontier Town in Alexandria Bay, where I rode the boat, or Adventure Town.
Adventure Town, yeah.
Adventure Town in Alexandria Bay. So, when you said these people were magnanimous, they shared their views, Ardo would go anywhere.
And you can see some of
And he would draw a
designs.
picture for you?
Right. He would help out with the designs, but some of these are, touched up. by Don Brazzi, and she remembers the signs. So you'll see some of the original work and ones behind you on the other side.
We watched him as he worked way very late in his 80s, because we would go right to his workshop, and I would just stand there with my mouth open. All pony rides free.
And there were other artists like Forrest Jones, Art Lyle. They would do the special
Yes.
detailing on the different buildings inside the saloon. You'll see paintings. And one neat thing about it is, like, you have Percy Fleming that did the actual chainsaw woodworking on your totem pole. Forrest would go in and actually make the face look more like what character it was supposed to be. And you'll see those pictures. We post them online.
What other, tell me about some of the other memorabilia you have
You
here.
have your pop guns,
We saw the guns, yep, and the holsters.
And then this was found actually as the building is falling down in Prairie Junction.
Come on.
Under the floorboards.
Come on.
On this,
That's probably one of the little general stores.
right?
that.
And you have your little guns.
Yeah, little gun. Now talk about now look at the big guns.
Yeah, this was as part of a collection that came
Wow.
out of Scroon Lake, and you can tell her name.
The Kristen Force, was it?
No, across the road there from you at the Allstate.
Look at
Oh, yes,
this.
yes.
Shield.
Kathy Shields. Kathy Shields at Upstate Agency, when Frontier Town, when they had the big auction, Kathy went in and she bought a huge amount of items, and
Aren't they wonderful?
she had them at her farm,
6 shooters.
which she recently just sold. So she's moving to Glens Falls, and she contacted
You can see still. a little
she
below.
contacted us and asked us if it was something Jen or I would be interested in, in purchasing to add to the collection.
see the
So, and then
saddle.
there's the saddle too that she had. That was an original saddle from Frontier Town.
Complete with lariat, and it has its spurs.
It's beautiful. It's real. I know, because I carried it in from the trunk of the car. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So
Clean.
that's the thing, is that a lot of people, as they see us working on this project, they realize that that we have a serious love and care about the items. So if they're to the point where they're taking up too much room in their house, or they're just tired of having them, but they want them to go somewhere safe, they're reaching out.
You know,
to
we
us
talk
and
about
asking
this all the time. When Calvin and I do these shows, invariably the people whom we interview say, "Oh, I got a call from this little old lady in North Hudson who said, that my kid's there, and I got something you might be interested in my closet,
Yep.
or in my cellar, or in my attic. Look at this."
This was one of the original badges,
You could have your badge
engraved with your name on
Of
it.
course you could.
Every employee had to have one. We all had one, and then they had a little shop where they'd go in and they'd get their badges where the sheriff was.
You didn't show up
So-
to work without your uniform, which was a cowboy
Oh,
outfit.
and you
or-
were deputized, and these cowboys shot each other all day long. Believe me, I know.
Well,
and
I was telling Jenny that I remember my first week of work, my very first week, I started off with a pair of jeans on what I thought was a Western shirt and a pair of sneakers. By the end of the week, I had full cowboy boots, jeans, a full Western shirt, and I had a black felt hat with a big, it was feathers around it,
Oh, I
with a big
love it.
rattlesnake on the front of it. So.
And then these are the soundtracks that actually came from the blockhouse. So these were, in the beginning, they actually had a man that stood there and announced until his voice went raw. They decided it was good business sense to go ahead and put these on tape. So from there, they went, and you can see,
these are tape cartridges, not the likes of which we used on the radio for the 36 years I was on the radio station. All the commercials are recorded on one single track. It's a continuous tape, just like an 8-track, but it doesn't have 8 tracks. It has only one.
There was always somebody in the blockhouse, but they were able to do this, so it was easier.
Just by comparison, the Adventure Town that I worked at used records
yes.
Oh, really?
hidden
They played
under a hay bale, and somebody would have to put the old 78 RPM records on.
They
because we're
played the-
talking the 50s.
They played Western music, which is a whole lot different than your country music. So if you talk to Percy, he'll tell you when Johnny
Oh,
Cash
yes.
and Merle Haggard, he was upset. He wanted the real Western
Oh,
music
yeah.
played there. But what's amazing about these tracks is that if you were not on cue and you weren't ready to move with your horse was going. So the pony
I love it.
Pony Express.
I
If
love
you
it.
weren't on time, that horse was gone. And so one of the stories is about Clarence Canary nailing the mailbag to the desk in the Pony Express office. So when he ran in and grabbed his bags, he was stuck. It was gone. The horse was gone. The whole season.
The horse was trained to the music.
Yeah.
I said, of course.
So
they
when the
were.
horse heard that cue, the horse would take off, and then the poor cowboy was standing there like,
So,
oh, great,
okay.
I got no horse.
Yeah.
And then there was a really good story about actually there was a woman that would come in at the beginning, and she would be hunched over the horse with an arrow in her. She was from I suppose she
Sure.
was out on the
I remember.
prairie. The raid. And so one day, the very last day of the year, I think it was in '83. It had to be in '83 because Dale was there. Dale Gibson, which is the professional stunt rider I was telling you about earlier, he decided to put the woman's garb on, and he climbed up on the horse and he comes riding in. Well, the sheriff, which was Goat, had to take him down off the horse. Well, he was thinking it was going to be this girl Lisa that always did it, and she was a little lightweight, and he wasn't paying attention. He was doing his lines, and he went over to pick the woman off the horse and carry her.
Isn't that great?
And he just about dropped Dale right in the middle. We were all laughing
Wonderful
hysterically.
story.
So the last day of the season was always prankster day. You never knew what was going to happen, and like Jenny said, there's stories that probably will never make it into any book.
Right. And you had your train was always robbed. Your stagecoach was always robbed, and they would take them around to show them Boot Hill. And as part of the skit, they would have the kids catch the bad guy, and they would have a dunking. Back in 1952, they called it a ducking, and they would literally put these cowboys into the pond, and it was nice when you had a 100-degree day or a 90-degree day. But when it got to the end of the season, which was like October, the owners would stretch out the season so that everyone would get their unemployment. So these cowboys would be dunked into freezing cold water, come up and have to go sit by the fire and wait for the next round to go get dunked again. So, you know, the
We're
fun
going to actually
stories.
look through the book in a few minutes, but I want to remind people that if my own experience is any teacher, people would come to Frontier Town, or Adventure Town in my case, take pictures, go back home to Wyoming, and send you all the pictures, make copies of the pictures they took in my camera. So many of the pictures I have of my time back in the 1950s were taken just by visitors
Right.
and little kids with their brownie box cameras or whatever it was. And I'm sure some of those are not professional photographs that you have in the book as well.
But we were actually lucky enough to find Dean Culler, which was Richard Dean, and he did the Adirondack photography, and your
Yes.
postcards were usually from Dean Culler. So I found his daughter is still doing photography, posting postcards in the local stores. So I paid for the copyright to be able to use those photos. But what was interesting is that I was given the whole set of each photo shoot. So in other words, there were pictures.
Isn't that marvelous?
Right, the
Phew.
pictures that you couldn't
It's your
use.
smile, you know,
right,
okay.
right. In the 1950s, you couldn't you could only do so much with a photograph or to lighten or darken. But now in the digital age, I can use Photoshop, basically bring out the lighting, show the detail. And what's amazing is those pictures that were basically thought of as ruined are perfect now. And that's a lot of the work over the last 2 years is going through and fixing each image and then posting them. And here at the museum, we'll have the database of all of those pictures.
I think we should have a new course of study at SUNY
would
Plattsburgh
be
called
amazing.
Frontier
Oh, I do too.
Town. You guys would be right up there in front lecturing every day.
Oh, I would.
And you think they wouldn't stand in line to take a course
Right.
like that?
Oh, I think
Are
they
you
would be a lot of
kidding
fun.
me?
It's not work. It's
You know,
enjoyable.
I think one of the best, there's a few things that really stand out about Frontier Town too that people don't know is that Mr. Benson, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Ovidson, when they started it, when they built the first original village with all the log cabins, it was a church, which is in the front of our
Yes.
book. The church is famous. Anybody and everybody loves the church. But people don't realize that Frontier Town we had church service every Sunday morning for the
Yes.
employees.
Oh, I remember
So
very
if we
well.
couldn't make it to church on Sunday because we had to work, we could still go in the morning. If we went in early enough, we could go in and we would have a church service. There were numerous weddings, only one of which we know has actually survived. Goat Mullis's wife says it's the church, the Jinx Church.
They're all shotgun weddings.
They're all shotgun.
And they had real
Look at
weddings,
the picture
though.
here.
There's only been one or two that actually are still doing
still-
well.
yeah.
There's a couple here in Mariah that are still married, and there's a couple out west somewhere that are still married, but a lot of them didn't make it, unfortunately. But the other piece is it's Linda.
The Kennedys are still married.
Yep, the Kennedys are still married. Linda Lyle said something to me once, and when I was doing my project for college, when she gave me her memory at the time, she redid that for us because she realized how much more in depth this was going to be. But she said this was the only place. How lucky we were that we got to go to work and listen to the American anthem, or listen to the God Bless America in the morning on our way into work, and we left listening to Happy Trails at the end of the day. Every day. You came into work feeling happy, and you left feeling happy. And then the one thing that got pointed out a lot in our stories, and we talked about this, is there was only one story that came to us, and there were two stories that came to us of anybody ever getting fired from Frontier Town. People, I don't remember in 5 years I was there, nobody ever getting fired. I mean, there were people that just didn't show up or quit, but there was not really anybody. Everybody was a family. We had two stories that came in where people were let go. The first one was back in the 50s or 60s. There was a young man who took his bandit job very seriously. He was supposed to only ask for candy and trinkets, and he ended up asking for quarters, dimes, and nickels, and he was walking out with a little bit too much change at the end of the day, and he got let go.
And then in later years, though, they accepted it. They allowed it because the Canadians would tip. And so they would go home with mustard containers, old ketchup containers full of Canadian coins that they would exchange and turn back in.
But in the very beginning, the rule was you weren't supposed to ask for any cash. So he was one story.
I never got any tips.
And then there was another story in the 90s of a young person deciding to partake of something they shouldn't have partaked of.
So they bounced him out of there.
And actually the other employees bounced him out. Bounced him right out of the board.
What is neat is that the employees, when you think of just like a McDonald's, the turnover there, but if you think of Frontier Town, you're looking at people that with last name of like Johnny Padre's brother worked at Frontier Town. The names went on to be like your headliner, your clown, which is Poodles Hannaford, was actually a major clown act. The Rosenbach Riders, him and his daughter Gracie, they're in movies. The amazing contribution from the locals was that you had Percy Fleming, who was literally going down and looking at a grist mill, coming back up to Frontier Town and building it. He did the engineering for these amazing works. He made all of the carousel rides. So when we went back up and we did an interview with him at Frontier Town, and I have to say, just an amazing man. He looked at something and he would do it, and he worked there 27 years. So
think about it. And there was, toward the end and after Frontier Town closed, a lot of controversy.
Yes.
We don't have to talk about a lot of the controversy, but it stayed on people's minds and in some negative ways for a long time.
Right.
This book is positive.
We tried to stay away from the negatives, but as my brother said, he's helping me with some other just proofreading. Christopher said, I start reading these stories and I'm like, this is great, and he's getting into it. This is someone who is 19 years old. He says, but by the end of the story, I feel like I'm so depressed by what they're saying about falling apart. And I took them up this last summer, and they loved it. They just loved, even though it's run down, the nature's taking back over. You've got fern, moss growing on top of the buildings, and they're caving in. They loved it. They were excited about going there, looking through everything, the pictures. It still applies, even though you're thinking cowboys went away, and you don't watch cowboys and Indians anymore. That's politically incorrect to even say Indians. But you've got things like Toy Story with your characters,
of course,
wearing a hat and their 6 shooters, and so it hasn't completely gone away. And what's neat is that people my age are saying we wish we had been able to go back with our kids, and family members. I wish it was still there.
You know what I'd like to do next? We're going to pause for a moment, even though you guys don't need to take a breath. I might. We're going to pause for a moment and come back, and we're going to look through the book a little bit to whet some appetites. So by the end of the people watching this, perhaps we'll sell another 50,000 copies. And
that would be great.
You'll be able to do the next generation. Okay, guys? Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Jennifer St. Pierre, you are amazing.
Thank you.
You're both amazing. You guys have done a magnificent job so far, and we should all be singing We've Only Just Begun, right, shouldn't we? So what have you got on your little computer? That looks very much like my oldest laptop at home. I like that. So what do you got here?
The original film done by we call him, the full name is Mangus, but Mac Anderson took 16 millimeter film, and he would do his own production for the commercials. And what we have here is I went through and had 16 reels digitized in the process of trying to preserve anything Frontier Town. And this is one of the reels, one of the shows at Frontier Town. It came out that it was called Stormy Weather, and the horse itself was named Stormy Weather. And it was a trick horse that would lay down with the cowboy. And this one happens to be Roger McLaughlin. And as you're going through the skit, you'll see it was a sad scene, but it was well loved.
Okay, let it go.
Okay. This is just part of it.
Long journey home. He carried his master gently on that last long homeward ride, and their two pals together cross over the great divide. Their bleached-out bones now mark the spot out in that desolate land where two brave souls fell at the end of their gallant stand. But we know, high in the heavens blue, up in that promised land, when the final roundup comes along, those two great pals will be on hand. Ladies and gentlemen, Roger McLaughlin.
Listen to the crowd. Don't you love it?
And the announcer is Clarence Canary. And so a lot of these films that we're finding, that we're preserving, are back in the 50s. They actually had a weekly show that was called Frontier Town. The first movie itself is a full black and white country, a Western show. So a lot of these are bits and parts of film that they put together as movies, and we're trying to find how much is on them. We can release. There's Chip Ordway is looking to put together a documentary on Frontier Town, and so a lot of those are being digitized and for him to put together. And right now he'll take a film and he'll play it to an audience at a Christmas special, and he'll have standing ovation, clapping. Everybody loves seeing the actual film. So
This stuff defines the word nostalgia.
it does.
That's what nostalgia is all about. It stirs my own soul, and I went to Frontier Town so many times, as our viewers know. Kay and I raised 15 kids, so our kids, a lot of them went to Frontier Town back in the old days, and they have memories now, and many of them are in their 60s, so they talk about the early days. How long did Frontier Town operate?
1952 to 1998-ish.
Think about it. I wonder if any other similar roadside attractions lasted that long.
Well, you
Does
have
anybody? Huh?
North
Oh, the North
the North
Pole.
Pole, and you have Disney still.
The Great Escape is,
Yep,
But New
still,
York.
yeah. That's kind of amazing.
It is.
And it owns its place in history.
Right.
I know, I think about it. Kay and I came up through the Northway not too many days ago on our way back from Kissimmee, Florida, where the reunion you said was held, and talked about it and commented on Frontier Town as we drove by. How can you not, if you ever were associated with it in any small way?
You can still hike in and see the buildings, and a lot of photographers love going in there. It's an abandoned theme park. It's what you would love to do. And right now there's town trails that lead right into Frontier Town.
And I was telling Jenny, when I was in kindergarten, I couldn't. That was our first class trip, and I was supposed to go.
On.
My kindergarten first class trip. I was supposed to go to Frontier Town, and I ended up with tonsillitis, and I couldn't go.
Oh,
My mother turned on the TV, and Captain Kangaroo was doing a special on Frontier Town that day. So I got to, which was probably some of this filmage that they did. They were doing
no kidding.
on
And
Captain
Mr.
Kangaroo.
Green Jeans.
Mr. Green Jeans, yep. So that was my first exposure, was in kindergarten, to seeing what it looked like, because I hadn't gone before that, and then my parents took me a couple times after.
Well, there's a piece of history all by itself.
Captain, I know,
had
I
no
would love.
idea.
I keep
No
looking on
kidding.
YouTube trying to find old Captain Kangaroo clips to see if I can find the old Frontier Town ones. So.
It's hard to find those things because in those days, of course, there was no videotape. It was all film and kinescope and so on from way back when.
Unless somebody
So
goes to the archives and digs it out.
Right.
you are so fortunate
Right. And
to
Joan,
have that much 16 millimeter film.
Right.
So it's all 16 millimeter, no 35 millimeter.
some
so-
people will send me their small 35 millimeters, and we've converted those as well.
Sure.
8 millimeters.
8
And we've-
millimeter,
yeah,
16 and
sorry.
35 millimeter was
Yeah,
a,
but she's talking about 8.
yeah,
Right.
you're talking
No,
about the little ones.
they've sent me all different size slides, negatives, and we've converted them, put them on YouTube.
That's just wonderful.
I had a couple from when I was working on my thesis at Plattsburgh State. I had a couple send me from England a DVD that they took when they were there in the 90s. So.
And we were just able to find the trains that were in those photos. The original Frontier Town trains, the porter. I was actually able to go down and meet Ben. He was putting that train back on the track. You have your old number 44, old number 99. Well, I was actually able to go photograph 44 again, and he's looking to put it back on a true track and run it. So that's amazing.
A lot of the old steam trains are being refurbished. People who have the wherewithal to do that are refurbishing and putting them back on the. Isn't that great?
It is.
That's wonderful.
What's amazing is that you have Percy Fleming, who actually took Plymouth, the actual engine itself, and put a gas engine into them and ran them. So that's amazing to us. And then this is someone that's local.
Are you still looking for memorabilia?
We are looking for photography of your memorabilia. I don't specifically need people to send me their stuff, but I mean, it's, you know, you'll go. We went and had our just a regular reunion, and people walked up and were handing me pieces of memorabilia.
Does anybody watching know what that is? Have you ever used one of those?
I have.
I have.
But what's really cute is all different types of things through the years, and we actually have files from Frontier Town receipts from the different manufacturers from the 50s, 60s, 70s. So we know how much the snap guns were, the pop guns, and the reels, how much everything, like your bows and arrows. So
what it cost Frontier.
Because every kid wanted a cap gun or a hat and so on, and there was very clever marketing in those days. They all did it. You had to go through Frontier Town, but you had to go through the gift shop before you could get out.
Right.
And the gift shops had different themes. I mean, there was the one down on the Western Village had more of a Western theme to it.
Yes.
They would have like the cowboy hats, the cowboy stuff. They would have the little, Native American dolls.
Yes.
They would have the moccasins. Then you'd go to the general store, which was up in the main circle where the log cabins were, and that was more your kind of household.
I love this.
Fun stuff.
For girls too, your lariat. Yeah.
I remember on my break at lunchtime, I'd go over and see Evelyn Clark, who ran the general store up in the log cabin area. And the biggest thing was to open up the top of a barrel and pick out your favorite dill garlic. You got to pick the garlic dill pickle you wanted. She'd fork it and she'd stick it in a little thing. And that was lunch. I would eat a big dill pickle. Like, that was my lunch.
There were pickle barrels and cookie barrels and cracker barrels.
Candy, stick candy.
Many things came in wooden barrels. Even when I was a little boy.
As a pony park worker, we hated the stick candy because the kids would come in and their hands would be covered in sticky candy stuff and all over the front of them, and then they'd be like climb on the horse and touch them, and their hands would be all horse hair, and they'd be touching you, and you're picking them up. But it was now as a teenager it was like ew, but then now as a parent you're like that was cool. So
how many other people? I'm sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say speaking of food, Tammy can tell about the salsa commercial. Everybody.
Yeah. As I was talking to you guys when we came in, I was showing you the covers for the books. I've got two ready to go to California. There was a sister-brother team that was there in 1983, Sissy and Dale Gibson. Sissy, I believe, is just a mom and has a ranch now, but Dale actually is married to Heather Burton, whose father is one of the top stunt directors in Hollywood. Heather and Dale have a big ranch just north of Hollywood. They both work in Hollywood as stunt people. He was actually the double for Tommy Lee Jones in The Homesman, in that movie that was just out. Okay. He was his double. He has a whole repertoire of movies he's been in. And he was also in the commercial, and everybody around here has seen it, is the salsa commercial where all the cowboys are sitting around the fire.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a few years ago, and I was driving through my living room. I almost dropped a bunch of dishes when I saw him. I was like, oh, that's Dale. I know him.
Talk about a classic.
Yeah, and he was like picking on, it's funny because he's picking on people in New York for their salsa.
New York City. Yeah.
New York City salsa. And I was like, I'm going to have a talk with him. And I got right on Facebook, and I'm like, nice commercial, picking on New Yorkers. So
I love it. I love it.
I love it when you talk to the Clausen family. They were headliners, but they were also brought to New York City for advertising. So they were on your couple of the old 1950s shows, and I actually met up with them again. And sadly, Chris Clausen passed away 2 weeks after I interviewed him for the book.
Oh, no kidding.
So, but it's amazing to me is that was a family with so many children, and they all came and worked at Frontier Town and lived there. They loved it as a highlight of their memory.
We had a couple people that passed away while we were working on the project. That luckily we were not, we were lucky enough to be able to interview them, but it made Jenny and I very sad when they passed away, because it was like, wow, you know, it's like we just got done. It's kind of like you guys when you were talking about interviewing, you know, Arto Monaco. It's you're there, and then a few days later they pass away, and you feel like you've captured something that nobody else was able to.
Every photograph you have in that book is a moment.
I'm sure you know Anna and Freeman Beebe.
Oh my goodness, yes.
So they passed away right after doing interviewing with them, and I brought the book back for Anna. Luckily, she got to see the book, but yeah, that happened right away, and so it is a shock, but it's nice that their family is very happy.
Now.
Yeah.
So next chapter is we're going to pause for another moment, and we're going to look through the book. We won't show them every page because we want them to buy the book. We wanted to pay extra for the leather cover. We wanted to buy 5 books for their kids for birthdays, and
we put it all back into the scanners, everything, the equipment, the laptop, everything that's invested back into what we're doing to preserve photos, and
And it's still, if you thought you were going to become a millionaire yourself from doing this project, but you know what?
The 5th printing.
The satisfaction
Yeah.
of accomplishing something like this, just for me, and I didn't have anything to do with it, is phenomenal. At the end of the day, you say, I feel
and that
good.
that was a perception in the beginning. People thought we were doing it to make money off it, and and it's like we've pretty much basically made nothing off this, because like Jenny said, everything that's been made has gone right back into the project, buying more rights to more photos, the equipment that she needed to do, or her scanners. I mean, the scanners alone, and the computers. Unfortunately, in the middle of our first one, luckily she backed everything up. Her laptop died.
Oh, come on!
Yeah, that was like heart failure for both. Was. She calls me, you believe this happened?
Had to start all over again. And
we had to start all over, But luckily,
Calvin, does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Calvin, who's been doing this since 1983, has archived literally thousands, sometimes almost tens of thousands of events, and then just have them all go bye-bye.
But he brought back a couple of the films. I asked him if he could post them on his page, and he did. He brought them back. And the family member, I don't know if you know Panther Sullivan, but his family, his daughter, really wanted to see that again. So that was special to her, and it made her family, they post comments like, it made me cry. And that's what people feel when they see that.
That's the value of the project. It is really, truly the value of this project. Is her and I seeing people smile, seeing people's reactions, seeing even crying. I mean, even though we don't want to make anybody cry, we know that when they cry, it's happy tears. It's not sad tears.
They're ecstatic.
They're ecstatic. Yeah. They're like, wow, that's actually out there. I didn't even like Linda Lyle. Like she said, she had her father. Her father was a famous painter and photographer and everything. She had trays and trays of slides that nobody had ever seen.
No, come on.
Never. Right. I mean, Linda probably saw them when she was a child, but that was it. They were in these little metal tins, and she brought them to Jenny. And the good thing about that is Jenny noticed right away that it had some blue mold on them. So now Linda's getting them all
dried and
curated and taken care of, so that nothing.
So
if we had pulled that out, she wouldn't have known those slides.
How many of those boxes of slides, or trays of slides, do you think exist? I mean, I have
many more. We have so many people that are still saying, I've got stuff in my closet.
I have a room in my house called the River Room, which most people will never be allowed to see because it's jam-packed with my stuff.
So I would hound you until you would bring out something.
Stacks of slides. You know how many slides are in each box, right?
Right.
Metal box, this high, and I have no idea what's on any of those.
If I knew you had Frontier Town stuff. And
I don't have much Frontier Town stuff. My association is with the Land of Make Believe and other Arto Monaco projects that I'm familiar with, and of course Adventure Town where I work.
I would do a little bit of shameless.
I know.
Asking you, I prompted a few people. I said, I will give you a copy of the book if you please, bring out your collection.
It takes a long time to digitize things, as you know, and it's very expensive, and we digitize our slides.
We've had some help.
But you do 500 of them, and you have to take a little nap. Because
this is my job. This is my 40-hour week. Some days I'll be up until midnight, 1 o'clock, scanning in things so that I can send it back.
It's a good thing you're independently wealthy, so you don't have to rely on them.
No, actually, I do some sideline things at the same time. I do dog grooming, and I raised horses. Bless
you. Anybody who loves horses.
Yes.
I don't own horses, but I worked with horses a lot in my lifetime. And my best friends in the whole wide world raise horses, train horses, groom horses, show horses.
They're a different type of personality, you know. People that deal with horses and dogs, they're just, you know, they seem to be more personable.
Okay, before we open the book, again, we need to know the website and the Facebook page.
It's jenniferstpierrephotography.com, and the Facebook page is just Frontier Town / Frontier Town Then and Now, and you capitalize the FT then and now, the beginning of each word.
All right, let's take a look at the book in a moment. The name of the book is Frontier Town Abandoned Theme Park Then and Now. These two charming ladies to my left and in full camera view are Jennifer St. Pierre and Tammy Brown. And what?
Tammy Whitty Brown.
Tammy Whitty Brown.
Tammy Whitty Brown, and she's witty. Oh, is she witty?
Right, anybody that's in this area, when they think of Frontier Town, they think of the Whitty family in that area.
It's a huge kick for me to be here. And when I'm enthusiastic about something, I try to let people know that on camera, because Calvin and I have done one of these documentary films every week since I left the radio business in 1997. Think about that for an archive, if you will. But this is a dream come true for these two ladies and for anybody else who's helped them along the way. The first book came off the printing press in 2014?
Yes.
December.
In
Yes.
December 2014.
Just
It was-
before Christmas.
It was a Kickstarter that was approved, and it was funded within, I think it was 2 weeks. And people had, sight unseen, purchased the book.
Don't you love it?
Yep.
The leather cover intrigues me immensely. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Quite a few of them were hand-tooled, and now it's done with a press, as you said later on. But we want to look through the book a little bit. I want to just mention that the book is dedicated to the generations of employees, volunteers, and visitors that supported and created a unique Adirondack experience at Frontier Town over the years. Wonderful. There's been a lot of water over the proverbial dam since you conceived of this idea until now. And without showing people the entire book, I want to pick some pages out that you find fascinating that we can focus on. You just let me know where you are as you leap forward. Something that particularly pleased you. Calvin's got a copy of the book. He's going to go through with us. We'll mention a page and chat about it. Where would you like to start, guys?
I would just say I think one of our biggest response pages was the picture on number 7. It was a group picture that was taken.
Oh, yes.
Frontier Town used to, I don't remember them doing it when I was there in the 1980s working, but in the beginning years, they would, at the last day of the season, they would get all the employees together and take a large group picture. And it was funny because even at our reunion we had last year, Frontier Town reunion, we had people going, "That's me! Oh my gosh, that's me!"
No, you're kidding me.
Seriously.
From 1955?
Yeah, there was a woman named June Hillman that I worked with in the 1980s that worked in the warehouse, and she had been there from like day one. She pointed herself out in the picture. She lives in Scroon Lake.
That was a good year, you know. That's the year I graduated from high school. So
Yeah, so this was the 1955 staff photo, and there were many people that said, "Oh, that's my uncle, that's my grandfather, that's me."
a colored picture,
People
wonderful.
asking us for copies of that photo because they were in it and they really wanted to have it to have in their collection. So
We want to mention that we did 160 color pages, and this is printed in the United States, and there were 864 photos in the first volume. So each book was actually a little bit more expensive to print, but
Is volume 2 underway?
yes, it is, and it will have just as many photos.
No kidding.
It won't have as many stories, but we have, like, Dick Corey sent us 25 pages, which is amazing, and it talks about the history, the professional side of it.
Who actually did most of the writing in this one?
Everyone that contributed, we added their names, and
Oh, I
sometimes
see, okay.
I would interview them myself, and then we would have them email stories in, and then I would add them to the book.
I see what you
But we
mean.
started, our base for the book was an online survey that Tammy started.
Yes.
And that encouraged people to start contributing. So you have all of these names of the people that either supported us in one way or another, and with stories. And it's the who's who in the front of the book, and we wanted to thank everyone for their contribution, because without those contributions, it wouldn't be as amazing as it is.
That's the way it works. And there'll be a lot more as volumes
Yeah, so like
continue.
the first 40 pages is the direct history, which is what I worked on. And I used Mr. Benson's original blue book that we were talking about earlier. Mrs. Benson is still alive and well, and she allowed us to use that as a kind of the foundation, because that was the basic. But in the meantime, we had some of the other two partners, some of their families donated some of their own written memories that I added to it. Plus, I really focused on those first 40 pages of talking about why I wanted to point out the things that really made Frontiertown unique to the local people, and why they wanted to work there, why they wrapped their arms around it and really loved Frontiertown.
It was a time machine.
It was. They got to go back in time. They got to do the things that they used to do. They got to drive stagecoach. We had stagecoach drivers that had been professional stagecoach drivers. Weasel Eye Willie. He was a professional stagecoach driver in the early 1900s. So all of a sudden, he's able to do. He's in the pictures.
Can you believe it? Yeah. Think about that for a minute.
And I mean, the forge. They got to work in the forge. They got to work in the grist mill. They got to do the sawmill. These are people that had been doing this as young adults, and now they're in their 70s and 80s, and they're actually working. They're doing the things that they had grown up doing. The glass blower that Mr. Benson brought up, he was from down in toward New York City, and they brought him up, and he was here every summer doing glass blowing. Mr. Lyle and then Mr. Canary, both professional leather carvers that he brought in that did leather carving. So they really encompassed, the local people loved that. And that's really what we wanted to focus on, is why we also.
Yeah, I love it. I love the sign, Clarence Canary.
Yeah, we talked a lot, and I talked about. One of my idols is Phil Terry, that wrote a lot of the books about how the APA affected the Adirondacks, and I used some of his research to really point out those changes and how things affected the area, and why Frontiertown was such a good thing to kind of put a Band-Aid over that, bringing back those old. Doing the woodworking or the leatherworking and stuff like that.
I don't know how many glass blowers there are left anymore.
Not very many.
But there were lots of them back then. Remember, Sable Chasm had one. Yeah. Every roadside attraction had a glass blower.
Well, and then it was, Gracie was making quilts, and they were dyeing yarn in the front lawn, and Mrs. Liberty was making pea soup and keeping the cabin and making, they did laundry every couple days and hung it out on the line so people could see how they used to make laundry in a big old vat. And a picture in here of her, boiling water in the front lawn, to wash the laundry and stuff.
What do you got on page 26 you were pointing to me?
On page 26, they would actually, the whole crew would go down to Albany at the State House, and it was basically protesting the interstate. When it came through, they basically neglected Route 9. So Art Benson...
We're talking about the Adirondack Northway.
Yes, and then when that came in, it caused damage to the local economy, because people were no longer using Route 9. So Art Benson was a very creative businessman. He would put cowboys up on the interstate waving at people driving by to get them to come and look.
Don't you love it? No kidding.
And what you see on 26, and there's also a photo here. This
on 20,
sorry,
over here, this one?
It shows in the sign on the page 26, it talks about how they went down to the state capitol, and they were very, very vocal protesters. But they did it in such a way that it was something that means a lot to the people in the Adirondacks, because overregulation is causing tourism to be our only major economic resource. And the problem with that is that the trades that like Frontiertown exhibited were to teach kids and to be encouraged in those industries. And when you shut down those things like Frontiertown, it actually closed down inspiration for these kids. So it affected the local economy. Your restaurants, your businesses, your hotels closed, and it basically made North Hudson into a ghost town. Another picture would be, let's see, page 10. And
we're going backwards.
Yeah,
okay.
Going backward, and you can see another cowboy picture. And what's different back then is that the guns and the shooting, and you could see, you had your your cowboy draped over the other horse. Now, these days, regulation, you would not be able to have shooting. The ones that do are very regulated. So that type of thing went out, and that was one of the downfall, is that over-regulation of guns in New York State is really a highlighted thing right now. People are fighting for gun regulation, over-regulation, against it. You have this repeal of the SAFE Act, so that's current as well. And the themes, there's different themes that ran with that, but in that time, in the 1960s, they went up to Canada in the malls and they were doing their skits. They would take the whole crew and they would do their shootouts. Well, at one time up in Canada, they had a shooting right before. So as they're doing the shooting in the mall, people started screaming and running because they were thinking real guns were going off. So they had to limit and adapt and stop doing the pop guns for their acts.
That's, of course, that's true. It's a different world
It is.
than it was in 1950, 1951, 1955. In some ways, it's so fast now that none of us can keep up with it. The internet has handed, most roadside attractions don't exist anymore for that very reason. But you and I, all of us in this room now, feel as though that charm would still be there. If it came back, the frontier town opened as it was, tomorrow the crowds would come in.
I think this would, and one of my reasons being is I just participated in a conference that the Wild Center put on up in Lake Placid.
Upper Lake? Oh, in Lake Placid.
Well, they were doing it in Lake Placid
Yeah.
at Roost, and they're doing a lot of research on the millenniums and what millenniums are looking for tourism attractions and stuff.
Yeah.
They're not looking for the high speed crazy anymore. They're actually shifting back to wanting to find things that teach things. Like when they did a survey of these they did 2 or 3 different groups that they surveyed, and they all were the same thing. They wanted, if they wanted to learn how do you make honey, so the kids could learn about beehives. They wanted to learn about hands-on type of stuff. And I think that it's shifting back to those old days where people are starting to realize that the old trades are gone, and they need to teach their young ones about this stuff. And that came out majorly in the Wild Center's survey they just did.
That's why Colonial Williamsburg has been successful all these years.
Exactly.
A smaller attraction called Upper Canada Village on the St. Lawrence River.
Exactly.
Tremendously successful every year.
Yeah.
We love it.
Hands-on, the kids get to learn the things that they hear their grandparents talking about, and they don't know what it is. You show them a rotary dial telephone, they don't even know what it is anymore.
Well,
I mean, and that's not that far in the past. I mean, if I was to show my grandkids
not in terms of my life, it isn't.
Right. I mean, if I showed my grandson what a rotary phone was, he wouldn't even know what it is. I mean, he's so used to seeing his mother on a cell phone.
They didn't even have rotaries on phones. When I was a kid, we had a 14-party line, and we said Maud, or you might call her Central, who had a little switchboard next door, the lady next door.
Down the street?
Yeah, can you tell me what time is it anyway? We'd say, we'd pick up the phone. What time is it? Okay, where are you?
I have page 131.
Man, you're up to 131. You've been moving while we've been chatting. Okay.
It talks about the bears.
I love the bears. Tell me about the bears.
And you'll see the top photo has a picture of the wheel that would actually be spun around so that the bear could eat out of it. And then one of the major stories about that is one of the state troopers, he actually admitted he went into Frontier Town to look around after it had closed down, and he came out of the cave and he saw this bear. He didn't know that the bears were still there years after it closed. So he went running for his motorcycle to get back out of there. But the shock of seeing a bear at Frontier Town still.
Well, there are several chapters.
Yes.
There are several chapters to that story. Perhaps didn't one of the female bears become pregnant inside?
I believe so, yeah.
Yes, do you remember that story?
And they have a couple stories about them escaping and,
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And you can still see the
But the
bear.
interesting part about it is when Frontier Town closed, the bears were there for a good, what was it? I can't remember how many years after.
They had
Sometime.
people.
Many years.
Yeah.
And the local people actually took the responsibility of feeding
That's right.
I remember,
that.
Steve Thompson telling me about going in and feeding the bears. They would feed them dog food and any scraps that they could. And those bears were kept alive by just people donating.
The goodness of the community,
Right,
yes.
and they have they've been since relocated and they're in Florida now. And there's a video on the Facebook page of one of the bears, and you can actually watch it, so in real time. So that's neat.
Oh, don't you love it?
So
No
there's-
kidding. A webcam.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Well, a video of the
Yeah.
bear, and then 125. You have pictures of Johnny Cash's concert.
That's important to remember. Now, I hadn't remembered Johnny Cash
Right.
being there until you said that today. Now, of course, it all comes back to me.
That was like one of my probably greatest days when I worked at Frontier Town. We were all so excited. I can never.
You were there at the time?
I worked there, yeah, at the
Come
time when
on.
the concert happened. Yep.
And the thing that they that was important about that is that Johnny Cash was actually considering opening Johnny Cash Land, and he was considering buying Frontier Town and relocating all of the parts, the museum, all of
You're
your
kidding
artifacts
me.
into
That's
his
a new
own.
one on me.
Yeah, so that was one of the reasons. And Percy Fleming says he remembers that he was at Frontier Town twice, and we only see one with a concert, but he remembers seeing the limousine coming in, and you can see there's photos of the concert. And we had our local band open for them, which is amazing.
Blue Ridge Sundowners.
Right, the Blue Ridge Sundowners. So to them, that's their.
Many people here in the North Country will remember the Blue Ridge Sundowners. They played probably from the Canadian border all the way to Albany and different places.
They weren't the only band to play at Frontier Town. There were other bands that came in, and but that was interesting for that time.
Well, that was very smart to have some big attractions there because I put them right on the map.
Right.
There was a story was told to me just recently. It's not in the book, but there was a couple young ladies that were working in the A-Frame restaurant, and late one night, this big travel bus came in, and they ordered a bunch of food. And they asked them if they wanted, these two young ladies, if they wanted to come out to the bus to meet the band. And they were like, well, who is it? And they said it was the Alabama. And they didn't believe them. They're like, yeah, right. And they, luckily their parents taught them, don't go near strangers or whatever. So they stayed away from it. They didn't come out. But the thing is the guys walked out with all these bags of food, I guess. And then they ran over and they were standing on the booth looking out the window. And there it was. It said Alabama right down the side of the bus. And they said it was one of those things that they will forever regret they didn't go out and meet the band. So
That's a great story all by itself.
Yeah.
So
Wonderful.
This one on page 110. These are the children, the Clausen children.
I'm ready. I'm going backwards. 110, yes.
Right. And they had, like I said, Art Benson was very good at business, and he was into marketing any way he could. So he would do things like you see the Frontier Town, the
Yes.
sign. He would actually put that on all of the bumper stickers of all of the cars, the paper Frontier Town.
Yeah, the beautiful part of it is, back in those days, they weren't bumper stickers.
They were bumper
They had
cars.
wire on
Right,
them.
and they would
And-
rust because the rain would hit it.
Oh,
and
yes.
the employees would take it off of their car, and he went out. He said, if you don't have one on your car, you're fired. So just and he was serious, very serious. If he wanted marketing to be done in any way
That's the way it
possible.
was.
So he would send, like the Clausen children were sent to New York City to be on a couple different TV shows, and your major shows, and you'll see the one large picture in front there.
Yep.
It's right on the table.
I saw it.
Okay, and I was actually, like I said before, I was actually able to get a hold of them, and it's interesting to talk to Becky, and to ask her, do you teach your children how to do roping? And you'll see like their family put on Facebook a video of the Paul Clausen picking up a rope again and doing the tricks, and you can hear his grandchildren talking in the video, and it's really sweet to see that they want to be just like Grandpa.
Isn't that great?
Yeah,
I love it.
it's really neat to see the grown-up version of the families that live there and work there. And you had a story about that.
Oh, I just wanted to point out, we were talking about the leather cover on page 99. That's the bag that the gentleman had brought to Jenny and said it was the messenger bag of one of the owners. And so that's the actual bag we were telling you about that Clarence Canary had carved, and we used that as the prototype for the book cover.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
So
And
where
then
is that now?
it's a gentleman owns it in Crown Point.
He does?
Actually owns the book, and he was nice enough to bring it to Jenny and show her, and we both fell in love with it. So.
How could you not?
Yep. And the other thing about Clarence that was really interesting as we were working on the project, her and I neither. I mean, I used to hang with her. I would go to Pond Hill. Clarence was actually a rodeo announcer. He was the leather worker at Frontier Town. He was the rodeo announcer for Frontier Town for many, many, many years. But he also was the rodeo announcer at Pond Hill. He would do their rodeos too, and so I would travel with him to go to the rodeos in high school and stuff. So I really kind of knew him, but there was a side of him I didn't know, and that was when we were doing our research, was that he actually did all of the leather work for the elephants for the Barnum and Bailey Circus.
Come on.
Major circuses,
Major
not
circus.
Who would know that?
not just that one, but
Except you.
several of the circuses.
Yeah, several
No
of the circus, but he
kidding.
did do Barnum and Bailey.
He ran away as a little kid and joined the circus. So he actually did some of the high jumps with the horses and rosin riding. He was actually a trick rider, trick shooter, and he would do some of his acts at Frontier Town. And they had to discontinue like his shooting one because they had one incident where a bullet shattered and struck one of the girls, the other employees. It didn't hurt her badly, but no permanent damage. But that kind of stuff it's interesting to know that information about him. But he wasn't the only leather worker. So each person that had a position, there would be another person like before or after, and they would try to keep that role filled. So you had Art Lyle, who was a leather worker before Clarence Canary, and then after Clarence Canary, there was another leather worker. So they would keep each role filled. Each of your skits were played by the same lines, but by different people through the years. And what was neat is that you would end up with like a father, a son, a grandson would come to work at Frontier Town and
That is neat.
fill
That's
those roles.
very neat.
Yep, and so like you'll see the pictures on page 81.
81,
And
love
those
the
are
pictures.
those are from Linda Lyles Terrell, and those are the different ones, the slides that she brought from the 50s that were so well preserved that the color is amazing. And I didn't want to change any of the color for the printing of the book, so you can actually see how vivid the paintings were.
You see the log cabin that's in there. When Art left Frontier Town, when he finally did leave, he had started a bar that's called the Powderhorn, and he built that bar based almost on that Frontier theme.
Oh,
It was
no
all
kidding.
log cabin. Yeah, it's on page 80. And it was called the Powderhorn, and it was probably one of the more popular drinking establishments for many years. It was right between Scroon Lake and North Hudson by Scroon Falls. So all of the
staff,
Mr.
Cowboys.
I was going to say Mr. Benson, Mr. Robinson, and Mr. Anderson, they did not
believe in drinking.
did not believe in alcohol or drinking. They did not believe in doing anything inappropriate. So this became, after work, this is where a lot of the staff would come, is to the Powderhorn to have a few drinks. And so basically it became a Frontier Town employee place to visit
No
after
kidding.
work if you wanted to have a few cocktails. They would have country western music and singing and everything else there. So
And another place that they would go, the cowboys, the rodeo cowboys, would all go down to the Painted Pony. And just this last year, the Painted Pony invited me back with the books, and they honored Frontier Town with Rodeo of the Year and they also had a section about the Cowboy of the Year. And I know that this year Roger McLaughlin has been nominated for Cowboy of the Year, and it's definitely an honor to go there.
Where was the Painted Pony?
Painted Pony is
in
Lake Luzerne.
the big huge rodeo ranch down there.
And
Okay.
the cowboys would go down there and they would win these competitions, the rodeo, and they would drink off their paycheck before they got back. Well, one year
It was Friday night.
they made a threat. They said, "You come back after that, and you go drinking, we'll fire you." Well, they all quit. So that's one of their favorite stories. They got hired back, but they were, that
Don't
was,
you love it?
It was just kind of like a.
You talk about the phrase deja vu all over
Well, and that
again.
was it.
Yeah.
The Cowboys would go on Thursday nights. They would go to Thousand Acres and do the roping and stuff like that. And then Friday night they would go to Painted Pony, and then Saturday night. This is after doing 2 rodeo shows a day at Frontier Town. They would go Thursday night to Thousand Acres and do roping and stuff. Friday night they would go to Painted Pony and that's a sanctioned rodeo, so that would get them their points they need. And then Saturday night they would go to Pond Hill in Vermont, which is over near Fairhaven, and they would do that one, which is also a sanctioned rodeo. So they were putting in a lot of hours. I mean, between what they did at Frontier Town, and their days would start early in the morning because they'd have to get all the cattle, the stock all fed and ready, and then they would have to clean the arenas and clean the stalls and take care of everything. And then they do 2 shows a day. And then and then in the 80s, when the second owners came in the 80s, they actually started doing rodeos at Frontier Town, I believe, on Wednesday nights. So then they were doing
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah we had rodeos on Wednesday nights at Frontier Town.
Oh, I love it. Okay.
Wednesdays or Thursdays, I can't remember exactly.
I was just waxing nostalgic about a picture in the lower right corner on page 83 because each day at this Adventure Town where I worked, I had to be shot several times, and I would have to go falling off a roof that was a little bit higher than this one,
Yes.
and I would have to fall in the dirt and play dead while little kids kicked me in the head with their pointed cowboy boots over and over.
Yeah.
That's maybe where the foolishness first started for Gordy Little, I think, maybe back then in the 1950s. Where were you just now?
Now, if you go to 148, they actually, it's
going
the
over.
Texas White Horse Ranch, and during their skits, they would actually hire local teenage girls and women to join in on the actual performance.
Okay.
And what you'll see is they're still performing today. So you see the horses, the beautiful albino, the white horses. You can see their website on Facebook, and both the sister and brother are still performing. And you'll see these white horses. When you hear stories about it, some of the people will talk about, yes, I rode the horses. And that was major, that they would include locals in their act. And what's amazing is that, like, the mother was one of the dancers at the New York City Radio City Music Hall. She was one of the.
Oh no! Come on, one of the Rockettes?
She was
You're
a Rockette.
kidding me.
Wow. Yeah, and she was, she rode Will Rogers' Trigger. You see that picture above there?
Madison Square Garden, 1958.
Right. Trigger.
Whose horse?
Will Rogers. And then you had
Roy Rogers. Will Rogers was a whole different era.
yeah, Roy Rogers was played on the overhead for the music, but the one on 148 at the top, you see the little kids, and that's what they were. They came in as teenagers, and they had the job of working the skit. And if you were a kid, that was your dream job, to go be able to play cowboy all day. And it was in a you saddled up your horse, you cleaned your guns at night, you groomed your horse, you rode your day, and then put him up at night, and you took care of your own horse. So you did feeding and mucking stalls. But can you imagine being a kid and being able to do that at 14 or 15?
So when school started, it's just weekends, right?
Right. So they would.
That's true.
Yeah.
One of the biggest pranks that employees played on the guest was the tunnel for
Yes.
the
Cave.
the cave.
The mining cave.
The mining cave. We had a mining cave down by the forge.
I remember.
And they'd put fur on the handle. So
Yeah, it
like
was
you'd
pitch
be-
black.
It'd be pitch black, and you'd be walking forward, and all of a sudden you'd feel fur, and you could hear the blood curdling springs from one end of the cart to the other. Yeah, that was bad. Or we'd all go in the ice house on our lunch break, and people would come along, and they'd be all excited to run into the ice house, and they'd walk in, there'd be 10 employees sitting in the ice house eating lunch, staring back at them. They'd be like, "Ooh." It's funny.
Well, we've showed a great deal of the book. I don't think we should show too much more, because I want people to buy copies of it. And that
Okay.
brings me to your full explanation of how much it costs and how they get them.
Okay, what the original design was to be a leather cover on a hardcover book for $75. But what we ended up doing, the cost of the leather itself is $40 per cover. So if you wanted to purchase just the leather cover, you could put it on a $30 softcover book. So these are interchangeable. It can go on one or the other. And the Adirondack Museum is interested in showcasing the book with the leather cover. So our original idea, if they purchased it in bulk, was to have the hardcover book with the leather for $75. So that would be going through the museum for those. And then on the website, you can still purchase the $30 softcover or the $75 hardcover book. And in the near future, we're going to do a bulk order and be able to bring the price down. But as of right now, it's $75.
The paper stock in this book is heavy.
Right.
Well, and that's I don't think people understand is that I've had people come up to me and say, "Holy Toledo, that $75 is a lot." What they don't understand is
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
number one, it's made in America, and we really wanted to do that because we see
Take a
so
look
much
at the
being,
book.
we see so much being made outside the country. We really wanted to stay working here in America. Number two is, like you said, the paper stock is very heavy. It's a very well designed book. It's a very well made book. The other piece of it is people don't understand that we could have done that book for a lot cheaper in hardback if we'd done all the pictures in black and white.
Right.
But the pictures would have lost their nostalgia.
Of
They would have
course.
lost their feeling if we'd done that. So we
Every
really wanted to
book
keep the colored
Yes.
pictures
It's a
colored.
treasure.
Right.
Exactly.
And these
It's
are
a keepsake.
And these are,
100
and it's
years
like
from
Jenny
now,
It's like Jenny has said from day one, this isn't like you go to Barnes & Noble and just pick up some book on Ireland that sits on your coffee table. This is people's lives. This is the history. There's, the 40 pages of history that I wrote. There's 120 of the oral histories between the survey and the histories that Jenny and I have collected. These are people's actual memories that are in this book. There's, 856 photos?
Right, 864 photos.
864 photos.
It's 8.5 inches by 11 inches, so it's a coffee table book. So it's a larger format of a book. And we've gone through, we started, for the Kickstarter, we started with one printer, and at the last minute they backed out. So then we were in a rush.
I didn't know that. You're
right,
kidding.
Right.
It was a nightmare.
It was a rush to get a 48-hour printing done.
Jenny and I were delivering the Kickstarter books on Christmas Eve at 5 o'clock at night.
Yeah, dropping off books to the local people that we could reach.
We met that morning. Yeah. She took half, I took half, and we were driving all over the North Country dropping off books.
Merry Christmas.
Very happy people. They were ecstatic. People have been, the book reviews are really positive. Every once in a while there'll be like a little glitch. If we name somebody the wrong name, a Clausen child accidentally was named Corey, Dick Corey's children. So I heard about that, and the nice thing about doing your own publishing is that you can update your version. So this is actually the second edition of the book. Anyone with a Kickstarter, that book is, that was only 25 of those books put out there.
Oh.
So, and then when the museum is asking for Frontier Town to be changed on the cover, so that will be another.
That one over there.
So if you have anything without the Frontier Town in it on the front, that will be another type.
But it's going to be a different graphic.
Right, that's going to be a quilter.
It's going to be the
slanted,
cool,
like the
Frontier
card.
Town bumper sticker.
That's just a prototype, but we told them we wanted it slanted like the original logo.
What's amazing about the book is that the $2.99 for the original blue book, if you wanted to show, they paid $2.99 for that, and now it's $250 on Amazon. And the number of pages in that book is incredibly small. So people, when I tried to explain, if you look at the number of pages in this book compared to this, color photos, number of photos, the stories, the hilarious stories, some of these are just priceless. The professionalism, it's a nicer, I think put together.
I think one of my favorite stories is about a young man who...
Just a minute. See if you recognize either or both of these people in this picture here.
Who is it?
Ron Stafford.
Senator Ron Stafford is a very young man.
Yep.
Is that cool?
And you see, like on the front page is Matoka.
Yep.
When she was little.
Yep.
Now, and a couple days ago, I heard from one of my professors at Plattsburgh State. Him and I were talking back and forth, and Marge Bruchak, you must know Marge. Marge, who there was some kind of TV special was on, and Dr. Royce was watching it, and I thought he was actually with her. I didn't realize, and I said, "Oh, tell Marge hi," because I had taken a special class with her at Plattsburgh State when she came and did an 8-week course, and I loved her to death. And she is was very good friends with the Eagles growing up. Her family spent a lot of time with the Eagles at Frontier Town. So I said, please tell her that my friend and I were able to accomplish what I wanted to do in college. There is a book on Frontier Town. So now she's a PhD professor. She's down in Pennsylvania. She's like, I'm sending you a check today. Send me a book as soon as possible. So
isn't that beautiful?
It's that word of mouth. It just keeps spreading and spreading.
And one thing that's really interesting is the plane itself. The Frontier Town had its own airport. So Art Benson would actually fly in and fly out, and he had Percy holding a banner out the back of the plane.
Oh, come on.
Literally holding the banner Frontier Town as part of his advertising. He was an amazing businessman.
Like Myrtle Beach?
Oh, yeah. The stories we've heard about Mr. Benson and Mac and them and their...
The partners.
I didn't bring it with me today, but I have one of the cavalry outfits, and I bought it from a guy in Swanton. I bought it on eBay, but I went over to pick it up, and we were sitting in his shop, and he said, you see that big billboard out there? And I said, yeah. And he says, the Frontier Town people, Mr. Benson and Mr. Anderson or Mr. Ovison, one of them, would come, and he says, and meet with my parents and have dinner with them twice a year. And he said that was where one of the Frontier Town, they paid my parents $200 a year to put a huge billboard in their front lawn, right there between Alberg and Swanton. And that's why he ended up buying stuff at the auction.
I love it.
And then he turned around and he was reselling them because he realized he had too much. So I have gone over. So I got to hear that whole story about, he said it started back when he says, I don't think I was more than knee-high to a grasshopper. And he said they were coming to dinner. They would come in like April. They would check the sign out. The first time they came, they actually stayed for like 2 hours and visited, offered my parents X amount of dollars to be able to put the sign up in their yard. And the stories we heard, I mean, even in the beginning when I write about how he went down to New York City, he went to the New York Times and wanted to do a story, and they were like, absolutely, forget it.
He snuck them into the...
So he said, fine, and he went to the New York Star, and they decided, and he fought with them for like 2 hours, and they finally said, okay, we'll do an article on it. Well, then when the New York Times found out the New York Star was doing it, then the New York Times did it. So it was, he was a very, very old... Smart. Very, very smart and very creative marketing person. He
actually brought the crew down and put them into the Macy's Day Parade at the last minute. And they allowed it.
No, you're kidding me.
Yeah, there's pictures in here of
I
the Macy's
love
Day
it.
Parade.
Okay.
And the fact that the 3 partners built Frontier Town, it's not published a lot, but you want to talk about the 3 names?
Oh, Mac Anderson, Ed Ovinson, and Mr. Benson.
Art Benson.
Well, we originally, like I said in the beginning, reading Art's book, I thought it was all Art's baby, but then as we started doing more and more research, Ed Ovinson's family started sharing like some journal writings that he had done, and come to find out, they were all friends, and they had come up here. They'd come up to visit. I can't think of their last name off the top of my head right now. A family in Lake Placid, a very wealthy family in Lake Placid, and they said, "Oh, you really need to go see the Santa's workshop that they have there." So they went and visited it, and then on the way home down to Long Island, they were talking about it, and that's where the inspiration came from. So it wasn't. It was a little more than that. That actually, Santa's workshop was an inspiration to them to start looking for a place to do Frontier Town.
Right.
So. And then Mac Anderson, he was just amazing with the video filming and stuff. Like I was interviewing Marvin Nolet, God rest him. He's unfortunately passed away 2 years ago. He was the grandson of the stagecoach driver I was telling you about, and he was saying how he hates blueberry pie to this day. And I said, well, why is that? And he said, because I was asked to be a little boy that stole blueberry pie out of the cabin. And he said they had to do like 20 takes on it, because him and the other little boy that were stealing the pie, they'd have to steal it, go sit behind the log cabin, Dottie's old log cabin, and eat that blueberry pie. He said, to this day, I can't even stand the taste
Isn't
of blueberry
that amazing?
Pie. Yeah.
I wonder if I'll think about that when I eat my favorite pie the next time. You know what? This is so much fun. We could go on for hours. We have one tiny chapter to add. The people are hiding in the other room.
Yep.
We're going to bring them in here and wrap it up. What a great day this has been.
Awesome.
We'll talk some more. Stay with us, folks. All right, we're just going to do a little brief addendum here to add the final chapter to a most wonderful time that we spent down here today. And this little community back in the country, are we going back the same way, or you're gonna fly us on a drone to get out of here?
Left breadcrumbs.
There's just so many pleasant memories of growing up in small towns and country roads. Calvin said, I don't think we did over 30 miles an hour ever since we left Crown Point. I love it. Who are you?
I'm Joan Hunston.
Joan, how are you?
I'm fine.
You know Jack LeDuc.
Yes, I
know
Jack.
So we have that much in common.
Yeah. He and I became very good friends for quite a few years.
That's terrific, Joan. And who are you?
I'm Susan Ross.
How are you, Susan?
I'm good.
I know that lady on the end. I've talked to her for the last 99 minutes. So what's your role here in getting some grants or something?
Yeah, I am president of the board of directors here, and I'm also Crown Point historian.
Well, we're going to be.
So I know the old stuff, the modern stuff. I leave to the younger members.
Wonderful.
But we love Jennifer, and I'm so proud of her collection. Yeah, I think I bought 4 or 5 books now from her. So
she met me when I brought ponies here, the miniature horses for rides here.
Oh, isn't that
came from
great?
Frontier Town, and she hired me here to give rides at their Apple Fest.
Some things are very important that we mentioned earlier and touched on them, and it's very difficult to go from one iteration, if you will, to another. And we're starting out with 16 millimeter film, some of it sound, some of it not.
Right.
But we'd love to get it digitized.
So would we. And
it's an expensive project, and it involves raising money to get it done. Are you involved in that part of it?
Yeah, we are trying to aid and assist Jennifer in whatever she needs to who copy the films and all the different tapes and things that
More
she
than
has.
$7, I can tell you that.
Yes.
$5 a minute.
$5 a minute, think about that. And we had how many total?
There were 16 reels altogether.
16 reels. And what's your role, my dear?
I'm vice president here at the museum.
I love this place. I love old building. How old is this building?
This building was built in 1843.
Think about it. Don't you love it? That's even before I was born.
Our museum was built in 1828, and the church that we own was 1843.
It's a little community, and it would be hidden from the world if it weren't for the nice signs that directed us up here.
We have guests that come up the road and say, "We almost gave up. What are you doing way up here?"
Oh, Calvin and I weren't going to give up. We came way too far to give up. But it'll be nice. I don't know how long it'll take before this can get done. Do you, kiddo?
He's told me about a month to finish the last 6 large films.
That's terrific. Don't you think it's fun to be, not only to study and understand and love and be passionate about history, as you guys are, but to be involved with a very young person like this over here?
Who received very high praise from her teacher here a week or so ago.
Oh, did you really?
And that was nice.
You know,
The teacher was the same teacher that brought me to Frontier Town.
No, come on.
Not kidding. For first grade teacher, Mrs. Hall.
what goes around
Right.
comes around.
And she's a board member.
But to be able to preserve history in any way, to be able to see what Frontier Town was like all those years ago, not through the eyes of somebody like me who was there many years ago, but through somebody like those young eyes who was there as a very small child herself and went back many, many times and still traipses off the road every once in a while near that spot in North Hudson to see what it's like. So we're going to get these things digitized.
Yes, definitely.
And there's negatives in Joe Provencha's collection, a lot of negatives that are being digitized and archived. And the museum is going to have their own database so that people can do their own research and see if their grandfather, or family member who is in one of the photos that we have. We have literally thousands of photos. And we're going to start that process now. And we're going to go visit another museum, Adirondack Museum, and see how that they do their archiving, and then we're going to do the same.
I love it. I love it. Were you both brought up around here?
Yeah,
You do?
I've been married and lived here for 33 years.
I'm
That
fifth,
counts.
I'm 5th and 6th generation here in
Are you
Grand Point.
really?
Yeah.
We mentioned Mrs. Ross's name here.
Oh, yes. There's a lot of Rosses around
No, but
here.
you mentioned your name. You haven't mentioned your name.
Oh, I'm Susan Ross.
Yes, we did. I introduced her at the beginning.
And in my family, there's on my father's side, there are 16 brothers and sisters.
Is that all?
Right.
Yeah.
Small family.
So they cover the whole waterfront.
Right. Our bus driver,
Just about.
our bus driver is Bob Bruce, and he's also in the book. Him and his wife both worked. His wife worked there, Chris Bruce. And what's neat about that is that he actually caught me skipping school to go ride a horse that I got from Judge Joe Java, who was the marshal at Frontier Town. And he caught me riding a horse instead of going to school as my Pepe's property. But I was showing them the work that I was doing on the book, and she's like, Chris said, I worked there, and so I have pictures of them when they were children, and it's really amazing when you think about your teacher who's retired now. You think of him with pop guns and a belt,
Well, there's 4 billion loose ends out there
Right.
connected with Frontier Town and the history of Crown Point in this whole region, and you people are just grabbing the ends of those shoelaces every day and tying this one off and tying that one off. And isn't it great to have a passion about history?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Joan was telling me about she has a ring that she purchased there. She still has it.
Yeah.
Joni,
That was a class trip in 1956, and I bought a ring which I thought was a cheap one, and everybody tells me it's pretty nice. So.
Very nice.
oh, my class trips were all long over by
Yeah.
1956.
Well, I was a junior in high school, so
Oh, you were?
yeah.
Oh, you're a ways behind me,
Yeah.
Johnny, but I won't hold that
Not
against you.
much.
Thank you all so much for being with us today. Thank you, young lady,
Thank you.
for your tremendous passion and dedication to this project. I hope we whetted the appetites of everybody in the viewing world And I feel sorry for the folks who were hearing about Frontier Town for the very first time, because we've known about it for a long, long time. But the last chapter has not been written, for sure. The last book has not been written. I hope you can order your copy today and wait for the next one and the next one. You have to live to be 100, you know. I'm working on it, and I'll see you there. Thanks to Calvin for holding that camera and actually steering his car down here and keeping us on this road all the way down here. On Leap Day, in leap year, February 29th, 2016, here we are with one of the most exciting, for me, programs that we've ever done in our little corner. And we've done one a week for, what, 19 years? Going on 19 years this year. Isn't that wonderful? I want to thank all of our viewers for enjoying these programs and letting us know that they enjoy them. And for those people who can, I want to urge you, if you think this program is a good one and that the public access and the internet should share more of these programs into the future, open your purse or your pocketbook and write yourself a generous check to Calvin Castine in care of Hometown Cable, 1477 Ridge Road in Champlain, New York, so that we can do this long into the future. This has been a great kick for me, and we're going to come down here again, Joan, whether you like it or not.
Oh, I'm really eager and excited. I can't wait to show you around.
I can't wait. And